Right, let's talk about the very top of the AFC then, because they're still there. The Kansas City Chiefs, 10-1, come very, very close to losing to Bryce Young and the Carolina
I thought you were going to say
Panthers.
came very close to losing, and I was going to be like, again and again and again and again. Every week, Will, the Chiefs are almost losing, and they're 10-1.
How impressed have you been with the way that Pat Mahomes has managed to make that group of weapons work? And look, we floated out there almost as a bit of a joke. Has he found a Travis Kelce replacement in Noah Gray? 2 touchdowns on Sunday, has been very good recently. But to me, it sings to the whole system, the whole coaching on the offense, that they're just, every week they find somebody. It's a Kareem Hunt game, it's a Juju Smith-Schuster game out of nowhere. And this week it was a Noah Gray game out of nowhere. Like, we have to give them some love for doing that, right?
I feel like I've been doing that all year. I've questioned how good they are. I said that the Chiefs did not deserve to be undefeated, and I think they ended up losing next week because they were not an undefeated, all-time classic, historic team. But no, they deserve 100% credit. If you're able to win with all these different pieces and change it up every week, and one week it's DeAndre Hopkins, then it's Kareem Hunt, then it's Noah Gray, then it's Travis Kelce, that means you have a really, really good quarterback, a really good head coach, a really good offensive coordinator. Obviously, Andy Reid is dialing it all up. That means your system works. That means you can game plan week to week. Some of the best coaches in the NFL, Bill Belichick was the king of this. They don't so much have a system, and they are just running that system over and over, and you have to figure out a way to beat it. They're able to change it, adapt it. So every week they're making tweaks. They're running the game tape. They're looking at tendencies. They're scouting. They're doing everything that coaches do, working 15 hours a day. And they're finding, okay, how can we win this game with these pieces?
So could Noah Gray carry them to a Super Bowl?
They have enough pieces, and you have Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, so Patrick Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes. He's been off this year. I thought last week he started to look a little bit like classic Patrick Mahomes. He also took some really bad sacks.
Did you see him in his press conference afterwards?
I did see him in his press conference afterwards.
Pat Mahomes comes up to the mic and says, "Oh, I'd really like to win a game not on the last play of the game."
Because that's what they've done the entire season, and it's at some point your luck will run out, or somebody else will make a play. I don't believe at all right now, as is, Kansas City is going to win the Super Bowl, and I fully believe this. If Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, if they win the Super Bowl this year, with everything they've gone through and all the changing pieces, this will be their greatest accomplishment. But as is, they're not good enough right now. They're not better than Detroit. They're not better than Philly. If Lamar Jackson plays the game of his life, they're not beating Baltimore. You could run down. They're not better than Buffalo. So they have to get home field advantage. It has to be at Arrowhead. And then you think with another month, 6 weeks, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, with these pieces, they start to fine-tune it. But when's it going to happen? It hasn't happened yet.
For me, the reason they need to be really concerned, and look, they need to be really concerned because they nearly lost to the Panthers. I really, really have to hammer this point home. The Carolina Panthers have been and are one of the worst teams in football. Now, the coaching has just got them playing well. Bryce Young had his best game in the NFL.
Bryce Young is starting to look like he actually has confidence again, which is nice to see.
And listen, I want to be positive. I think what the Panthers have done in recent weeks has been very good. The Chiefs should be steamrolling them. They should be doing what the Lions are doing to every team in the NFL and going, here's 50 points, we're only going to concede 10, we're going to have a lot of fun doing it and we're going to laugh our way back home. Like, they should have destroyed them. And instead, they're eking out a last-minute win. They're having to go on a late drive. They're relying on Patrick Mahomes to make this admittedly incredible play where he gets outside the pocket, gets up that left sideline, stays in bounds, beats everyone, and he just always seems to have that in his locker. But every other season with this Chiefs team in the Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator era, what's happened is they've come out okay. They've got really hot because Mahomes is incredible and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and all that stuff are going to be positive about. And then that Spags defense has got better and better and better as the year has gone on. And they get to January and they're like, right, we don't need to be scoring 35, 40 points on you anymore. Now we can beat you by only conceding 15 because our defense is incredible. This year, the script has flipped. This year, that first 7 or 8 games, we're sitting there going, do you know what? They might win the Super Bowl just based on this defense. And then the last few weeks, last 2 weeks, they've given over 325 plus yards through the air. They have given up. They've pressured absolutely nobody. The pass rush outside of Chris Jones there's not a huge amount of talent there. So they've been able to scheme it up. George Karlaftis and doing all sorts of stunts. No, none of that existed. The Panthers' offensive line is barely worthy of college football, and yet the Chiefs couldn't get to Bryce Young, who is barely an NFL quarterback. And I watched that Chiefs defense and I just went, that's not a defense that should be a playoff defense, let alone a Super Bowl defense, considering they've got the greatest defensive coordinator in the league and all of the exciting pieces. And I think unless they figure that out in the next couple of weeks, I think much like last year's Eagles, you're going to see the Chiefs start to lose another game here and another game there. And the confidence starts to eat. And suddenly, they're not the number 1 seed and they're losing a wild card game and everyone's up in arms. And do you know what? I'd kind of really love it.
I've always said I don't root against Patrick Mahomes or Andy Reid. Andy Reid's one of the best coaches in NFL history. Patrick Mahomes, one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. The fact that they are 10-1 with all of their issues, I respect that. I also think you're wrong there. I think Bryce Young has actually reminded people that he is a capable NFL quarterback and looked pretty good. Bryce Young was the main reason they were in that game. I actually saw Patrick Mahomes running around, taking sacks, not being able to find openings in the coverage. But in the end, Will, for me, Kansas City is 10-1.
But what they were doing earlier in the season, like they play the Falcons earlier in the year, and that's a game where they didn't really put it together on offense, but they get into the fourth quarter and the defense just went, you know what? We're going to stand up here. We're going to make this happen. In this game, the Panthers were down 2 scores going into the fourth quarter and down a score driving late on. There's no way that team should be coming down and scoring a touchdown on you. And you expect it from these bang average middle-tier teams. Last week when the Seahawks get the ball with 3 minutes remaining against the 49ers and needing 7 to win it, you're kind of feeling like Geno Smith's going to go and do it. I've never felt that about Bryce Young. As much as he's looked much, much better the last couple of weeks, and I'm really excited that the benching him and bringing him back might have actually worked. That Chiefs team should be doing what great teams have done for years and years and going 3 and out, turnover on downs, because you're going to go for it on 4th down, we'll have the ball back, we'll take some knees and we'll go home with a win. And instead they're forced to take the ball back with less than a minute and go on this amazing field goal drive. Like, they're just relying on those two things way, way too often, and I think it's going to fall off a cliff. I really do.
I don't think it's falling off a cliff. I think Kansas City Kansas City could very well end up with the number 1 seed in the AFC. Do I think they're winning the Super Bowl this year as we speak right now? No, I do not. But I still believe that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, the two of them together, they have enough pieces, they have enough talent to figure this out. But it has to start. They can't. There's no flip to switch in the AFC Championship game. It has to start. And you are right. If you're struggling against Carolina and you struggled all season to finish off teams to get wins, that they're 10-1, they could be 6-5, they could be 5-6. There should be, without question, concern about the Chiefs. And you start to look at someone like Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce, I remember we had a fun debate.
Is he going to do a January thing again? Because last year, people have to remember, Travis Kelce was rubbish in the regular season. And all those fantasy owners who went, yeah, I'll take a tight end in the first 2 rounds because it's Travis Kelce. He always scores 10-plus touchdowns, has 1,000 yards.
Not anymore.
He's ever reliable. But in January, he really turned it on. He was brilliant in the Super Bowl. He was brilliant in the AFC Championship game. Is there part of you that just watches Travis Kelce and goes, oh, he's a bit slow, he's trundling, he's not running the routes, but you know what? I fully expect him to turn it on in 3 or 4 weeks' time.
Well, but if you think that, then why won't the Chiefs turn it on? So if Travis Kelce is going to turn it on, so if you added a turned on Travis Kelce with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, you have DeAndre Hopkins, you have Kareem Hunt, you still have Chris Jones, you're sounding like somebody who thinks Kansas City is going to turn it on.
I'm asking if you think he's going to turn it on. I personally think that. Well, but the problem is, I said this last year. I was looking at him going, there's no way that guy's going to suddenly flip it. And he did suddenly flip it.
But he was better last year than he is this year.
Yeah,
and the numbers, are very concerning. Like, we're saying concerning a lot with the Kansas City Chiefs, which we have not said much in the last few years. The numbers are very concerning for Travis Kelce. It's career low time. Is one of the biggest stats that you always watch for a wide receiver. And it can, if you're catching a 70-yard touchdown, it will skew it. But is yards per catch, average yards per catch. And you start looking at Travis Kelce's average yards per catch, and that's usually when you can tell that a very good wide receiver, a great wide receiver, a tight end is starting to trail down. His have trailed down remarkably, which means he's not getting separation as much anymore. He's not as fast anymore. He's not able to, get yards after the catch, all of those things. And that's continued to go down for him. At some point, you can't just turn it on anymore. You can't, in January, I'm going to play harder or be more intense because you're just not fast enough. It's age. It's time. It catches up with you. I feel like, yeah, it has caught up with Travis Kelce. And that's, I will make your point that, in a backward way, they have to have Travis Kelce. They have to have Travis Kelce turn it on. If not, all these things we talked about in this segment, it's not happening. The Chiefs are not winning the Super Bowl with Noah Gray, with DeAndre Hopkins kind of coming and going, with Patrick Mahomes getting sacked all the time and throwing bad interceptions. That is not a Super Bowl winning team. When you have Detroit, when you have Philly, when you have Buffalo, when you have Lamar Jackson, there's so much. It's a league of separation this year. It's not a league of parity. It's a league where you have 4 or 5 teams who are really good. Detroit might be great in the end. You've got to be in that conversation. Kansas City's barely in that conversation right now, even though they're 10-1.
We're saying all these really positive things about the people behind the scenes, and it's why I agree with you. It feels, as much as I've compared them to last year's Eagles, I always felt negative about last year's Eagles because of the coaching, and this team have Andy Reid, and that is the great separator for me, right? But at the same time, it's Thanksgiving week this week, Black Friday.
Yeah.
Short week against the Raiders, a team who have always played them. We have these weird games where they randomly went and won in Arrowhead 2 years ago and then drove their bus around the stadium in celebration.
You're going to have Max.
There's a little bit of me.
You're going to have Max. I'm writing a story at talkSPORT.com in my head right now. You're going to have Max Crosby versus Patrick Mahomes, Will. That's the best rivalry in the NFL. The Raiders are worthless. The Raiders are one of the worst teams in the NFL. They're tanking.
Aiden O'Connell's going to beat the Chiefs on Friday.
They don't have a quarterback. They need a number one. They need Travis Hunter or Shedeur Sanders. They need to hire Deion Sanders, bring in Tom Brady, clean house. All those things, I completely agree with you. I'm not sure the Raiders win that game. That's going to be an interesting game, and the Raiders always play up. You'll be on national TV. They always play up against the Chiefs. If the Chiefs lose that game and they fall to 10-2, that opens the door for Buffalo to become the number one seed in the AFC. Kansas City has to. Is it a must-win? No, you can still get the number one seed. But from a team perspective, we're going to have a historic three-peat. We're going to be the first team in NFL history to win 3 straight Super Bowls. You need to beat the really, really bad Las Vegas Raiders on Black Friday.